how to choose the right inflatable boat for your needs. Boating in a nutshell, follow us. It's only right that I tell you in advance that you are already a dinghy owner or very interested or passionate about dinghies and you really know about them. Fleets. There's no point in me being here to tell you things that you obviously don't already know, so you decide whether to follow me or not. Of course, I often say this, especially for this type of video, it's mainly aimed at those who need to get an idea, who are trying to understand or want to better grasp what the right approach to the world of boating is, specifically regarding inflatable boats. We'll divide it into chapters, more or less. The topics. So let's tackle 5 topics. The length, the type of hull material, the type of material for the inflatable boat, and the kind of use I want to make of it. And the power of the engine or the type of engine. Let's start right away with the length, because then, based on that, you can understand what you can do and where you want to go. If we are talking about, for example, a rib, a boat under 6 meters, I will be able to decide whether to have a boat under 6 meters, normally, with or without a license. In Italy, the license is for 40 horsepower, so there are also 6-meter boats that can navigate well, even with 40 horsepower. Otherwise, there are 5-meter and 5.5-meter boats made of fiberglass. So with a fiberglass hull and a rigid bottom, let's call it that. Or otherwise, I can also decide, still within the no license category, for much smaller inflatable boats, maybe the ones that can be disassembled, so that's the difference. Then we'll look at the type of hull later, but when it comes to length, if I want to go without a license, I definitely need to think about boats that are 6 meters or under, or maybe 6.5 meters at most. Because there are also boats that are 6.20 meters and 6.25 meters. I don't have any issues with the license, I don't have any issues with length if we want. I can obviously increase it, so I can choose a boat that is longer, and as a result will have more space on board and consequently will also cost more. The other limit I need to consider is whether I have a license. When it comes to choosing the length, the other step I need to consider is how much I want to transport it around generally. The trailers behind the cars, behind the Jeep or whatever you have, to the minivan, they accommodate inflatable boats or boats up to a maximum of 9 meters and some even up to 10 meters, but that's much more difficult. Normally, it's a maximum of 9 meters overall. So this means that we have, the first step is for no license boats under 6 meters. The second step is up to 9 meters. As for that, I also want to be able to tow it around. Towing it means being able to carry it on a trailer, maybe behind your car while you're going on vacation. If I don't have either of those problems, so I have a license or a budget, or do I have the intention of leaving the boat stationary in a storage facility at a port? So I don't have size limits. Because today there are boats that are 40, 50, 60 feet long, which means 10, 15, 18 meters, or even larger, of course, even though there aren't many of those, but you can still find really big inflatables. That said, if the choice was yours, and this video is particularly aimed at a beginner, at anyone who wants to start understanding it, how the world of boating works. As for the ribs, the inflatables, well, the process is more or less the same as for the maxi ribs. Let's set aside the fact that generally one is already ultra experienced. Another difference, as I mentioned before, is the hull, the type of material and how the hull is structured. So the hull of the boat, in this case, could be made of rigid fiberglass or aluminum anyway. The part is rigid. Inside the tubes, or it could be soft, so that it can be rolled up for the inflatable boats that can be disassembled. Generally, inflatable boats that can be disassembled don't exceed a certain length. Generally, after that, there are specific cases, maybe particular ones, but normally on the market you can find inflatable boats that can be disassembled. So they can be rolled up to 5 meters, 4.5 meters to be precise. Yes, 4.5 meters, I would say no more. On the other hand, I can choose to have a rigid hull made of fiberglass or aluminum. Let's take a look at the three differences. Removable is the first, it's the easiest to say, and also the cheapest. This is also because it is mainly aimed at smaller sized inflatables. The advantage of having a foldable and removable hull, which can be rolled up, is that you don't have to have a trailer for certain sizes, but still under a certain length. Definitely. Not having to have a trailer to put it on, because I can pack the inflatable once it's rolled up and put it directly in the trunk of the car instead of on a camper trailer. So this is the very first advantage. The second advantage is its lightness. Because obviously the fabric underneath is a material like that of the PVC tubes normally. And this allows for a great lightness of the boat. Another point and another advantage of this situation is that being so light makes it easy to maneuver. You can get closer, maybe to some beaches where you can approach where it's allowed to get close. Get closer. Put the inflatable boat directly on the beach. Consequently, without anchors, moorings, and so on, because it is light, because it is practical, it is fast. It doesn't hit or get damaged. Because if I keep it lifted and then set it down, the bottom doesn't get damaged either. So these are the advantages of a soft keel. As for the keel, a rigid one, instead, as I was saying, we have two solutions, one of which is 80, 90, or 95% of the options, which is fiberglass. And then, for a few years now, we have had inflatable boats with aluminum keels. The fiberglass keel, essentially, the concept idea is the same as that of a boat. Being made of fiberglass, the manufacturer will decide how to construct the various inflatable boats, the different bottoms. The type of layout of the spaces, of course, the larger the size, the more you'll have the possibility of having cabins. Very large spaces, separate WCs, meaning real boats within the tubes. On the other hand, if we talk about an aluminum keel, the concept is more or less the same, except that aluminum tends to have advantages in terms of lightness. I would say lightness. Another advantage of aluminum that it is easier if we want, we need to be careful because it's less delicate in a certain sense. Other advantages of boats with aluminum keels will be explained by the manufacturers of aluminum keel boats. Because everyone obviously knows the next chapter has so many topics to discuss to highlight the advantages of his and the disadvantages of the others. That said, I'm just giving an overview. Let's talk about the materials of the tubes. So we've discussed the type and material of the hull. Now let's talk about the tubes. The tubes are also divided into two main different fabrics. One is Epalon neoprene, which is generally the most prestigious fabric. There are various manufacturers that have excellent qualities in this type of material. It's a material, it's true, very expensive, but it has a nice feel. Nice inflatable boats are made like this, especially the larger ones. So this material is indeed much more expensive compared to the other, which is PVC. Of course, it also gives a softness to the touch. You can feel how nice it is. It's a bit like touching cashmere versus touching felted wool. In short, it's a bit different. You can feel it. That said, aside from the feel, there's also the perception of seeing that it's a more beautiful material to look at. It's also much more durable. Over the years, in fact, there have been inflatable boats. Really, even for us. In the shipyard, we have found dinghies that are 25, 30 years old and made of neoprene. If kept well, stored well in a garage, or in any case, indoors in winter, indoors in summer, not directly under the sun's rays. UV is a material that really has a tremendous capacity to withstand the test of time. The counterpart, or at least the other side of boats, the other material mainly used is PVC. PVC is a material, yes, poorer, but also more. It's easy to build, let's put it that way. The small tenders, definitely for sure, under 4 meters, but also something a bit larger. They all make them in PVC. Not only in PVC, but mainly in PVC because the cost is 1 to 4. Let's say either 1.5 or 1.8. It depends a bit on what kind of comparison you want to make. The advantage of this boat is that it can really be mass produced. The welds They can be made without gluing, so with hot welding, using machinery. Basically, there's less need for labor. It's easier to produce, it's faster, and it costs less. On the other hand, you have the disadvantage that it lasts less over the years, but on the flip side, you've also spent a quarter or a fifth of the cost, so you can make your own assessments. Navigation, which is a topic closely related to the type of hull, is very, very comfortable and particularly advantageous. Having a hull that can cut through the wave so it doesn't flip over on you while you're driving it. The vibrations and the direct impact on the wave. The fact of having a rigid hull, whether it's made of fiberglass or aluminum, has the advantage that the bow cuts through the wave immediately. So it breaks it, essentially creating a groove within that wave. This groove allows the inflatable, if it's not a particularly high wave, to pass over it. And the other advantage is that it doesn't jump. So if it goes over it and cuts, it's like if it opened the waters basically to flatten them gently. And on the inflatable, you'll definitely feel some movement, but certainly not the reaction that the boat would have when directly hitting the wave. Generally speaking, even there, what happens on the other hand with an inflatable or soft bottom is that the boat has a much more flexible. So what does it do? It takes the hit and then throws it back up to whoever is driving the inflatable boat. That said, we're also talking about different sizes. A non-rigid keel, like the one I was telling you about at the beginning, is generally for dinghies under 4.5 meters. So you go slow, take it easy, enjoy it more, and go when there are definitely calmer seas or less formed waves. Another thing is the type of activity I want to do on this inflatable boat. You might want a dinghy to go out for a few hours swimming a few miles away, or maybe very close to shore, you might want a dinghy. To go out or almost and stop immediately to sunbathe, a dinghy for in sports activities such as free diving, underwater fishing, or a dinghy for real scuba diving with tanks. Otherwise, you could do sports activities like wakeboarding or any type of accessory or means to have fun in the sea. Depending on the type of use, let's not forget fishing. I apologize, I took that for granted, but in fact fishing is one of the main topics for inflatable boats, not just fishing from the shore, but also fishing from the boat. The advantage of fishing, the advantage of having an inflatable boat instead of a regular boat is that I can move around with 4 or 5 people, those I have on board in terms of width and length, without the need to risk falling because it tips over. In fact, thanks to the tubes, inflatable boats are, unlike regular boats, much more stable for the same size. These two things are almost incomparable. This gives me the advantage of being able to host more people on board, having more people fishing, and having to pay more attention to what I'm doing, so fishing, and less about what he's telling me. The vessel I'm on is tipping over, turning, bending, tilting. The other person who isn't paying enough attention or maybe isn't experienced is moving in a bad way. On a boat, if someone moves the wrong way, it can cause problems, but on an inflatable boat, even if someone moves awkwardly, there aren't any issues. The difference, depending on the type of use, may be of someone who wants to go out for the day, sunbathe, and enjoy some relaxation. The thing is that the inflatable boat needs to be completely clear so you can move comfortably from side to side. Anywhere to move quickly on the inflatable boat for fishing, 100%, while for a daily relaxation use. You sunbathe, and definitely the bigger the sunbathers, the better. The more there are, the better it is. So it's a factor that I'll pay more attention to. If I want to use an inflatable boat for sports activities like wakeboarding, or as a support boat for kite surfing or other similar sports, I'll decide to have a very open inflatable boat, right? A nice, wide and comfortable console that gives me fixed points to lean on, get on and off easily and safely. But of course, the space on board needs to be ample and completely free. As a final point, but not the least important, as the experts say, is the engine. The engine you need. At the beginning, I gave you an example about the length and the necessary engine power. It really depends on the type of use and what do you want to do. First of all, the dividing line, do we have the license or not? If we don't have a license, well, the recommended engine is generally the maximum suggested by the boat manufacturer, with limitations based on the possibility of installing that engine on this boat. It's completely different when it comes to the inflatable boat with a boating license. So from 40 horsepower and up, where I decide how fast to go and how much power reserve I have. So the principle is more power, the better I have, but not just to race around like a madman. The power obviously needs to be balanced for proper navigation. I don't like it, but that's just my personal choice. Pushing the limits with the equipment just to go to the edge. Okay, I can understand the thrill for the love of heaven, but normally I like to sail and feel the sensation of being at sea, not on a highway, to feel the waves, to feel the movement, to be there and perceive to be at sea. It doesn't rule out the fact that I can have a very, very powerful inflatable boat. There are inflatables that have 300, 400, 700 horsepower, even 1000 horsepower. It obviously depends a bit on the size of the boat. Here too, what I recommend you do is to check what does the manufacturer recommend for that type of inflatable boat. The best choice is to always ask the manufacturer, because for many of those boats of that size, of that model, of that year, they are always very, very limited numbers. What this means is that there isn't an experience like there is with millions of cars or thousands of car models. We're talking about hundreds and sometimes even just a few dozen pieces and sometimes even fewer. So always refer to the manufacturer for what their representative can tell you, which could be in fact the dealer of this brand, in which, look, to do this, I recommend this power. There's no limit other than the construction on whether you can or cannot mount an engine. So the choice will always be made based on the possibilities depending on how the inflatable boat was designed and built. And consequently, the choice of the engine must be made according to that. I hope I have covered all the various topics sufficiently. If you are new to the world of inflatable boats, RIBs, which in English RIB is the acronym for rigid inflatable boots. If you have questions about a specific case, all you have to do is ask your question down below in the video, and usually within a day or even within 24 hours we can respond. To almost all the questions we receive, posts. If you don't want to miss any of our videos, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel. Plus, you'd be helping us make more, of course. From Lake Garda Boats, beautiful ones, all I have left to say is fair winds and always keep an eye on the weather.